A man's eye popped out of its socket. Firefighters carefully pushed it back in place. Just earlier, his friend, trying to boost their live stream's views, had him strapped to a spinning wheel and spun it wildly. They used a motorcycle's rear wheel to speed up the spinning wheel at a crazy rate. Soon, the motorcycle's tires started smoking due to the intense load, but they didn't care and were thrilled about the high viewership. That was until the motorcycle burst into flames. The two of them ran off immediately. When the firefighters arrived, the man was still spinning uncontrollably. They quickly extinguished the fire and stopped the spinning wheel. By then, the man had passed out. His pupils were unnaturally dilated. The firefighters carefully removed him, dripped saline into his eyes, gently pushed his eyeball back into place. After some emergency treatment, the man finally regained consciousness. The man was just eating a cookie when the police pulled him over. The officer even had his hand on his gun. Even though the man had all his papers, the officer still claiming his documents might be fake. The man was immediately pressed onto the hood of the car. His daughter quickly grabbed her phone to start recording, ignored her father's warning to stay inside.
What are you doing to my dad?
Get back in the vehicle.
The officer tried to grab her phone. At this moment, the little boy in the back seat woke up.
Backseat!
No! Dad!
Hands in the air!
Stop!
Seeing the officer pointing a gun at his son, the father finally lost his patience. He quickly told the officer that his wife was also a police officer, a superintendent, even giving her badge number. The two officers were instantly terrified. Knowing they had messed up big time, they quickly returned the man's documents, mumbling about it being a misunderstanding, fled the scene. But they had no idea who they had just messed with, especially when the superintendent watched the body cam footage herself, her anger reaching its peak. The superintendent's husband and kids were illegally stopped and threatened at gunpoint. Even though the police chief said the officers would be disciplined, it wasn't enough to calm her anger. She discovered that in the past 6 months, that officer had been reported multiple times for excessive force and violating civil rights, each case involving Black or Asian individuals, but nothing was ever done about it. If she couldn't even protect her own family, she would rather take off her uniform. Soon, the superintendent pulled over that same officer and gave him a breathalyzer test.
Legally, I can refuse that.
And legally, I could throw you in jail.
The officer kept apologizing, saying he didn't know it was her family. But what good is an apology? The kids were already hurt emotionally. What about all the other Black people he had mistreated?
I can report you. This is retribution.
If it was retribution, I would have done it when your kids were in the car.
I really am sorry, Sergeant.
You have a nice night then.
Seeing her point was made, the superintendent turned and walked away. But the father still had to remind his children to always follow police orders. Whatever they ask, just do it.
'Cause I'm Black.
Yes, because you're Black.
A boy was playing with a bow and arrow when he accidentally shot his neighbor lady through the neck. But when the firefighters arrived, they told her she should actually thank the boy. Earlier, the two boys had been playing baseball in the yard and accidentally shattered the woman's beloved ceramic figurine. Furious, she confiscated their ball. Left with nothing else to play, the boys turned to archery. And that's when the accident happened.
Boys!
Dad!
Strangely enough, the woman seemed fine, despite the arrow piercing her carotid artery, with little blood loss.
Ma'am, when's the last time you saw a doctor?
I don't do doctors. If there's nothing wrong with you when you go in, there will be when you come out.
Upon examination, the paramedic discovered she had a tumor in her neck, and the arrow had hit the exact spot without causing major damage.
Am I gonna die?
Actually, if you get it treated, chances are you'll be just fine. But I wouldn't let it go much longer.
So, the cancer just saved my life?
I think those boys saved your life by pointing an arrow right at the problem.
Had it not been for the boy's arrow, the tumor might have gone unnoticed until it was too late. Though, honestly, that arrow could have killed her too. There's a pepper so spicy it could burn a hole through your stomach. This man planned to use it as a pie filling to prank his best friend, because his friend had put hair removal cream in his shampoo, leaving him bald. As everyone was about to dig in, the friend distracted the man.
Who is that?
In that split second, he swapped their pies.
So? How is it?
A little bland, to be honest. Real question is, how's yours?
The man immediately felt a burning pain in his throat like it was on fire, grabbed a drink, chugging it down.
30 years you haven't grabbed me a soda from the fridge. Now you make me tacos? Come on, cuz.
He couldn't hear anything his friend was saying, just kept gulping water. The friend realized the situation was serious. He tried the Heimlich maneuver, but it was useless. When the firefighters arrived, the man had already passed out. The medical team suspected spontaneous esophageal rupture. His chest was filled with fluid. He wouldn't make it to the hospital in time, so the team cut open his chest, inserted a tube, and drained the fluid. The man finally regained consciousness. It's safe to say he'll never touch a pepper again in his life. A woman was trying to repair a bowling machine, but her coworker, distracted by their phone, accidentally turned it on. Her arm was instantly caught in the machine, blood splattered all over the bowling balls. She desperately shouted for help, but the noise in the entertainment venue drowned out her cries. It wasn't until a customer picked up a blood-stained bowling ball that someone noticed the situation and quickly called for help. The firefighters arrived on the scene, but the coworker seemed completely indifferent to what had happened. Seeing the woman in pain, the firefighters immediately examined her and discovered that her arm had already been severed. The machine was compressing her blood vessels. If they lifted the machine abruptly, it would cause severe bleeding. They decided to dismantle part of the machine's frame and remove her arm along with the support, rushing her to the hospital. So what do you think of such a coworker? A massive block of ice slammed down onto the man's neck. Just a short while earlier, a group of boys had started a dangerous live stream stunt on the highway. They were towing their friend behind a car while he skied.
Man, go around. What's your problem, dude?
No one noticed the huge slab of ice on top of a nearby truck breaking off and falling.
911, what's your emergency?
There's been an accident on South Lamar Boulevard.
How many vehicles involved?
No vehicles, a skiing accident. Please hurry, I think my boy's head's about to come off.
When the paramedics arrived, they found the ice deeply embedded in the man's neck. Miraculously, he was still alive. They carefully cut away the excess ice, leaving just enough around the wound to prevent excessive blood loss. They placed the man on a stretcher and rushed him to the hospital. However, as the temperature inside the vehicle rose, the ice in his neck began to melt, causing blood to gush uncontrollably. They quickly pulled over and gathered snow from the roadside.
Cap, he's circling the drain.
They rushed back to the vehicle, packed the wound with snow, instructed the driver to turn off the heat, and open all the windows to lower the temperature. The man's condition finally stabilized.
Hey, Brody. Welcome back.
A man accidentally fell into a grain silo and started sinking rapidly. The firefighters shouted for him to stay still. They carefully approached him by laying down plastic boards, then secured a life ring around him to prevent further sinking. Next, they surrounded him with steel plates and inserted a suction tube to extract the grain inside the steel barrier. Suddenly, a firefighter's safety rope snapped, and she instantly sank into the grain. Even though she remained calm, she kept sinking. Another firefighter tried to pull her up, but his reach was too short. As he saw his teammate about to be completely swallowed, he didn't hesitate and unhooked his own safety rope to save her. However, the suction force pulled him down as well. Left with no other options, the captain ordered the silo to be cut open. Finally, as the grain poured out, all three were successfully rescued.